Two-time Grand Slam finalist Todd Martin reached a career-high rank of number 4 in 1999. He's a former president of the ATP Players Council and currently sits on the USTA board. In addition to recently starting his own academy, he has also coached professionally, working with Novak Djokovic and Marty Fish. Todd was nice enough to sit down with us for an interview where we talk Aussie Open, medical timeouts, doping, and string technology. Well, let's start with the Australian Open. Obviously, Djokovic had an unbelievable run. Having coached him a little bit of 2009, 2010, what do you think is the biggest difference now and when he was, say, number 3 in the world?
Well, when he was number 3 in the world, I really feel like he felt, since he had been number 3 in the world for a long period of time, one, I think he felt like he was doing a lot right.
Yeah.
And two, I think he had accepted his fate as being the third.
The other guy.
And in my opinion, he needed to change some things in order, because if you're third in the world for that long, something's wrong.
Right.
Because with that amount of talent, and so I'm certain he's changed the method of how he goes about doing certain things. Watching him play, he plays way more aggressively than he ever did when he was not better than Nadal and Ferrer. And obviously he's 100% confident in himself and feels, I think he walks out on the court feeling superior to those guys.
Yeah. Well, we all saw the amazing five-setter Djokovic versus Wawrinka in the 4th round. Having played many 5-set matches in your career, can you kind of help someone who has no idea what that feels like physically? Can you help us understand what that's like when you get done with a match like that?
Well, I mean, I look at it 2 different ways. One is, go walk around a mall for 5 hours and see how you feel.
Right.
It's, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Now, have that much time on your feet, have it be pounding, have it be stressful, it's just such a significant investment of energy, physically, mentally, emotionally. And then you can also look at it as training for a marathon. You run 26 miles. Good ones do it in 2 hours. The not so good ones do it more in 5 hours. 2 days later, you got to go again. And it's not apples to apples, but it's that intensity, it's that duration. All the entire match is a sprint, and the entire match is a marathon.
Now, as far as the topic of doping goes, it's been discussed a lot. There are new headlines every day, it seems, that make it seem like maybe it's a possibility that it's happening in tennis more than we think. What do you think about the current anti-doping program, the way that it is now, which is really not a whole lot of blood tests, not a whole lot of out-of-competition tests, and maybe some urine tests in competition? What do you think about the way the ITF anti-doping program runs as it is?
Well, I think with anything in this regard, you have to look, or at least acknowledge the expense of what comprehensive anti-doping programs cost. For years, I thought tennis did a great job of being sort of an industry leader. In my opinion, we've fallen behind the pack a little bit. In this day and age, when there's so much concern about blood doping, EPO, and God knows what else, that it from my understanding, is not detectable from urine. It does seem archaic to only be testing urine. When I was still playing, the top players were being tested probably 5 to 8 times out of competition, if I remember the data correctly. And that's basically knocking on the door and saying, here we are. So if that's decreased, that's a huge issue. But really, at the forefront of it is we need to be up with the science. And although blood testing is way more expensive, less blood testing is probably better than more frequent urine testing, because the blood shows more.
Absolutely. So when you were on tour, you never saw any evidence personally that was going on?
Well, certainly not in the sense of what we saw, somebody carrying syringes but we saw evidence of it because guys tested positive.
Right.
It is absolutely naive to think that any sport is clean, and it kills me to say that, but it's just like Wall Street. Somebody's breaking the rules to make sure that they make an extra buck. There's a lot of bucks on the table in professional sports, so you're going to find the unethical competitor looking for an edge up.
Right. Thanks to Victoria Azarenka, there's been a lot of talk about the current medical timeout rule. How do you think, I'm sure in your career you've seen guys using that to their advantage.
Sure.
Do you think the rule needs to change now that maybe the general public is aware that this is happening?
Well, it's like anything else. Things are inequitable for a reason. Shuzo Matsuoka, somewhere in the early to mid 90s, went down at the U.S. Open in a full body cramp and absolutely was unable to be touched. Completely unhealthy, unwise, but it was the rule. Now this situation with Azarenka was not necessarily a cramping issue,
right?
But we need to prioritize the players' health. But you also have to. This game was founded on a code and on competitive ethics, and so I think there's got to be a better education of the players, not of the rules, but of what the intent of the rules are. And if it comes down to it, I hope that the players' health is always put above the need to make it fair.
Right.
And that's it's always going to leave that blurry line of what's ethical and what's not. And in the end, that individual is the only one that's really going to know.
Right. If you could coach a player on the tour right now, male or female, who would you pick? That's a tough one, I know.
Well, I would pick selfishly, and I would pick David Ferrer. And I would pick him not because I think he's got a lot to learn, but that I played him in the last year of my career, and I beat him on clay, which shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And I was unimpressed. I watch now, and he might be the 4th ranked player, and really the 5th ranked player if Nadal's healthy. But he's the 5th ranked player for quite some time at such a disadvantage as far as skill and
size
and size and natural talent is concerned. He, therefore, I believe, is, if not the best, one of the 2 or 3 best players in the world. It might, maybe not by ranking, but by what he gets out of himself. The cliche is pound for pound, and I'd love to be around that.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot of money in tennis, like you mentioned, and there's been some unrest on the tour in the last year in particular, players wanting more money, in particular at the Grand Slams. And maybe fans might think, okay, the winner's getting close to $2 million, the first round loser is getting, in some cases, close to $30,000. Fans may be thinking, that kind of seems like a lot, but I know it's different from the player's perspective. Can you shed some light on that?
Well, I can. I got to put the disclaimer out. I'm on the board of directors of the USTA, so I sit on one side of a table, and then I also was the president of the ATP Player Council for 8 years, so I sat on the other side of that table, and so I am in an interesting situation to look at it from both perspectives, and I just share sort of the general arguments on both sides because they both have validity.
Yeah.
One side, the player's side, talks about revenue sharing, and the fact that 52 weeks a year they're competing for the big prizes of getting into these tournaments, the 4 Grand Slams. So really the 20-something, nearly 30,000 of first round prize money is a reward for all those 52 weeks worth of work. And then I don't think you have to argue too much about the winners of the tournaments being paid an exorbitant amount of money, because when you factor it out, it's frankly not much different than the best of the other sports. We might agree that it is still excessive, but then on the other side is, but for Wimbledon, there are federation-run events that are charged with much bigger tasks than simply running their Grand Slam event. So the term is mission-oriented, right? So the USTA, the French Federation of Tennis, Tennis Australia, are all charged with building the sport at every level within their nations. That's a huge responsibility, and with it comes a budget that is significant. So the discussion of revenue sharing blows a hole in a mission-oriented theme. And also from that side of the table is if the Grand Slams have 25 million plus in prize money for the players, and the rest of the tours don't have 25 million each in prize money, and the rest of the tours, the ATP Tour and the WTA Tour, don't have much more prize money accumulated throughout the course of the year, then why should those 4 tournaments subsidize the rest of? So it's a really complex issue. I think it's incredibly interesting. I think in the end, I'm hopeful that players can be reasonable. The Grand Slam tournaments can continue to heed the call for a greater share and find that middle ground. But that's a process that in many ways has just begun. And if there's a rush to get to that final term, then that would be concerning.
Switching gears just a little bit, you played a couple PowerShares Series matches last year. Any plan? I know you played Champions Tours many years before that. What about this year? Are you going to be back out competing?
I love to play. It's a matter of playing opportunities. With what Inside Out Sports and Entertainment has done with the PowerShares Series, making it one-night tournaments with 4 guys as opposed to longer and larger events. The talent pool can get a little bit shallower.
Right.
They've broken the rules a little bit to let me play a couple of times. Really, I think they want the credentials that the players have to be former number 1, former Grand Slam champion. I fall shy in both of those.
So close, though.
Fall shy in both of those. But I truly love to play, and I think I fit in well with the caliber of play, and so I'll answer the call if the call comes.
Do you still love to win just as much? Is your competitiveness as much now as it was 15 years ago?
I hear a lot of the people who have the opportunity to talk about winning and losing the most say how much they hate to lose. Maybe in a really perverse way, I never hated to lose that much because I knew I learned so much from losing. Now I don't really learn an ounce from losing. So I still don't mind losing because we're old and gray and bald and all this, but I do really just enjoy the process of competing, coaching and teaching as much as I do. It's a really good exercise for me to be on the court in a competitive environment, trying to figure out the puzzle that's on the other side of the court, trying to remember how to do things that I once did relatively simply, and also dealing with the emotions of pressure and nerves. And I think it's it's a great asset for me as a coach to be able to look at it through a player's eyes every now and again.
A lot of guys, when they're done playing, are done. They don't really want to pick up a racket. They kind of just want to hang out and relax because they've worked hard for so many years. You, on the other hand, you've been involved in just about every capacity there is to be involved, and you're here supporting NJTL. You've done tons for kids in Florida. You've been on multiple boards. Why do you stay involved?
Well, again, it's always part selfish. I mean, I'll be right. They're great experiences. I founded an NJTL chapter in Lansing, Michigan, where I grew up 20 years ago now, and I did that not selfishly. I mean, that's like the one altruistic thing I've ever really done. But I did that because I wanted kids to have the opportunity to put a racket in their hand. It did so much for me through my childhood. Forget about professional tennis. Just getting through school, tennis made it easier. Staying out of trouble, tennis made it easier. Growing up to be a quality father and husband, tennis made that easier for me. So getting a racket in the kids' hands, giving them an opportunity to learn in that safe environment was hugely important, because it was a privilege that was taken for granted by me on every day I went to the tennis courts. Being involved with USTA, with the ATP, forming my own business and coaching and teaching, all of these things are done first because I enjoy them, but also because they're incredible opportunities for me to share what I learned, what I experienced throughout the years of my life in tennis. And I'm one of the few that hits every step on that staircase, I didn't skip steps. And so I'm familiar with, partially familiar with every step in the developmental pathway of players, and with some relationships that I've had through the years. Foremost, my childhood coach, who was the head of the staff of the USTA for several years. I'm very familiar with other components of what the sport has to offer to communities, to at-risk youth, and so forth. So tennis has given me most of the really unique opportunities in my life. Not to discredit my parents, but so it really just makes every bit of sense to me to stay involved. I'm still obviously very passionate about it, but I also feel that responsibility that it's sort of like Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right.
Well, my life has happened in tennis. Why not keep it in tennis instead of letting it go wayward?
I like that. Well, specifically, you touched on it there. Can you point out maybe one or two things that you feel like were your lasting lessons from tennis that play out in your everyday life?
I'm 6 months into running an academy of sorts, and it's my first foray into proper business, and repeatedly I'm staring in the mirror and having to answer some of the challenges that I'm intellectually or experientially not capable of answering, and I got to figure it out. And I don't always figure it out on first blush. I don't always figure it out on second, but the lesson of perseverance was learned on the tennis court very early in my life, and that's I would say I would say that's number one as far as what comes, or how I meet daily challenges. And then this is much more my parents, but my tennis life certainly supported it and was well aligned with it, is decency. And I was taught at a young age, be decent to everyone and respect everything. And I find that to be something that was reinforced all throughout my competitive tennis, through my coaching tennis. And so perseverance and decency, if I can get through each day with a little bit of both of a small dose of both of those, I feel like it's great value.
Let us know your thoughts on Todd's commentary in the comment section below or on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you next time here on Tennis Now.